Hello, welcome back to Nicole's Nutrition Corner, your one-stop shop for all things nutrition education and food freedom. So something that's been super huge in the media over the last couple years is the keto diet. So today in this video, I'm gonna do a review and share my maybe unpopular opinion about the keto diet. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So just a reminder that I'm not a registered dietitian, I'm a dietetics student, and this video doesn't substitute for medical advice. And before you start any diet, you should always talk to your healthcare professional. All right, that's it. Let's start. Okay, so first things first, what is the keto diet? The keto diet is a very low carb diet, normally below 10% carbohydrates. I know a lot of the books and the media says less than 5%. And so what happens with this is you end up keeping your protein the same, but your fat gets increased. So you're increasing your fat, decreasing your carbs. So generally speaking, on this diet, 65 to 80% of your calories come from fat, 20 to 25% of your calories come from protein, and then 5 to 10% come from the carbohydrates. So before the ketogenic diet became popular in mainstream media as a weight loss tool, it actually was used and is still used to manage epilepsy in children. There is also, interestingly enough, some low quality evidence, so it's not the highest grade quality evidence that's out there, but there is some evidence that suggests that it may help improve glycemic control in people with diabetes. So there you have it. Okay, so then why are people doing the keto diet now if they're not using it to manage epilepsy or for potential glycemic control in type 2 diabetes? And I know you all know the answers to this question, and that's why you're watching this video. People use it for weight loss. So when your body is starved temporarily of carbohydrates, what ends up happening is it pulls on muscles, and the fat that's in your body breaks that down to use it for energy, and that's why people end up losing weight short term on this diet. So normally your body uses carbohydrates, breaks it down into glucose, and your body uses that glucose for energy. So when you limit your carbohydrates, your body will pull on fat and proteins to find energy. So after about 3 days on the ketogenic diet, if you're doing it properly, there's no longer enough glucose for your central nervous system to draw upon. That's why it starts breaking down other sources for energy. And this alternative source of energy is what the ketogenic diet is based on. So your body will start to break down fats, and it will form ketone bodies. And ketone bodies can be used by your central nervous system for energy. And this is described overall, this whole process, as ketosis, when you're using ketone bodies for energy instead of glucose. So earlier I mentioned that it will actually degrade your muscles and your fat. This is because it takes 3 days for your body to get used to using ketone bodies for energy and for muscle degradation to stop. All right, so that's the gist of it. That's what the ketogenic diet is and how it works. Now let's talk about the science behind it, my favorite part. Okay, so if you know me, you know that I classify myself as anti-diet. This doesn't mean I'm anti-health. I just don't believe in dieting and going on diets. So that will sway a little bit of my review on the ketogenic diet today. If you want to understand a little bit more about diets and the negative health consequences that are associated with dieting, check out this video, has lots of information on there. So there's no actual scientific evidence that long-term the ketogenic diet will cause weight loss. If you're watching this and you've done it before, I've heard of so many people losing weight in the short term. But what happens is, because it's not a sustainable diet, you end up just gaining it all back. So a year later, there's actually not much difference. And the research, when they compared it to a low fat diet, so instead of low carbs, it's low fat, there actually wasn't any difference between the two diets after a year. So it's also shown that the adherence to this diet long-term is very low. That's just because it's partially not very sustainable. It's hard to eat out and be keto, all of that. And there's actually very limited research available on the safety of this diet long-term. So that's also something to keep in mind. On the keto diet, you have to have low carbs, and sugar is a carb, which means you can't have any excess sugars or added sugars. A lot of this means you have to have things that are sweetened with like stevia or other sweeteners that don't include sugar. But because of this, because you can't have added sugars or sugar, generally you end up consuming less calories through drinks and like beverages like pop and soda and all of that. And you also eat less foods that have added sugar. Both of these things are really, really great in my opinion for a healthy diet. But, and I know you knew this was coming, there's also a flip side to that. So people who do the ketogenic diet are actually shown to be at risk for poor nutrient intake, and some of these nutrients that are something to watch out for and could be at risk for being poor intake on this diet include calcium, vitamin C, selenium, magnesium, zinc, and phosphorus. So that's a lot of nutrients that are at risk of being low, and that's because these nutrients are generally high in carbohydrates, which is what you're limiting on the diet. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about the concerns about eating low carbs, now let's talk about the increased fat that you eat when you're on the diet and some good things and some bad things. So if you watch my nutrition label video from last week, which I'll link up here, I talked about polyunsaturated fats and monounsaturated fats and how they actually are desirable for your health. So that's a really great thing about eating a high fat diet, is you're more likely to get those beneficial fats that are good for your health. Something that I personally am concerned about with this diet is that you may be eating more saturated and trans fats. Saturated and trans fats can increase your development or your risk of development of heart disease in the future. So before I discuss why saturated fat and trans fat are something that you may want to limit, we need to talk about cholesterol, and you need to understand the different kinds of cholesterol. So the two I want to mention are HDL and LDL. HDL is seen as your good cholesterol and LDL is seen as your bad cholesterol. HDL cholesterol can actually help clear out the cholesterol in your body. So this is why it's considered good. Now, LDL cholesterol is seen as bad, and this is because when you have increased LDL cholesterol in your bloodstream, it can get oxidized and then it gets attacked by macrophages. And what ends up happening is it contributes to the development of plaque in your bloodstream, and plaque in your bloodstream is directly related to your risk of developing cardiovascular disease. So, saturated fatty acids can increase your LDL cholesterol, your bad cholesterol, which contributes to your risk of developing heart disease later in life. And then trans fatty acids are a double whammy because they increase your LDL cholesterol, your bad cholesterol, and they decrease your HDL, which is your good cholesterol. So like, avoid trans fatty acids. So something that I found really interesting in my research when I was prepping for this video is that when you can compare the ketogenic diet to a low fat diet, when people use those for weight loss, the ketogenic diet can actually increase HDL cholesterol and the good cholesterol. But that said, compared to a low fat diet, it also impacts and increases your LDL cholesterol. So that's something that's been shown in the research when they compared the ketogenic diet with the low fat diet. All right, so like any diet, there are some good things and there are some bad things, but personally, overall, I do not recommend the ketogenic diet unless you need it for a medical condition like epilepsy or type 2 diabetes. One of the main reasons I don't recommend the ketogenic diet for weight loss is just that it's not very sustainable. This diet is hard to keep up long term, and it requires you to completely adjust the way you eat. And personally, I just think that's a lot of effort. One thing that really concerns me about this diet is that there isn't any long-term research on it and whether or not it has health impacts long-term and down the road. And again, it's very important to be cautious when you're starting any new diet. It's always important to talk to a healthcare professional before, just to make sure that the diet doesn't put you at risk for any other sorts of conditions. I've tried keto foods and I personally don't love them. I love carbs, not even just bread, like fruit. I love fruit and I love vegetables. And I just don't know how you live without carbs, guys. So overall, as a dietetic student, I personally don't recommend this diet, but it's important to remember that all of the opinions in these videos are my own opinions based on my own personal experience. So you need to make the decisions that are best for you, but please, 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 please talk to a healthcare professional before you start any diet. This is super, super important. And that's it, my friends. My next video is going to be all about supplements and the supplements that you guys wanted to learn about. So be sure to stay posted for that on Friday. And like always, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and please subscribe below. And if you think this video will be helpful to anybody else in your life, share it with them. I just want to get out as much knowledge as possible and educate as many people as I can through this channel. So with that, I'm gonna sign off now, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.